Well, let's have a look at the changes to level 3 for 2022 over what was in 2021. And there are a couple of types of changes that I'm going to discuss. The first one here is content. And next is just the structure of the readings and how they're laid out. And I'll try to go in order here of the way they're presented in 2022. The first topic you get to, or at least the very first readings, reading 1, reading 2, behavioral finance. There used to be 3 readings. One reading was dropped altogether, the very first reading. So the first reading now starts with the behavioral biases, and they've been streamlined quite a bit. And one learning objective has been dropped completely from that first reading. So it's being condensed, and I think it's a lot more relevant. There was one reading that was far more theoretical than the other two. Well, that one is now gone. Fixed income, this is the big one, all new. By the way, after behavioral finance is capital market expectations, 2 readings on that. No changes there, but some end of chapter questions were added. Then you have 3 readings on asset allocation. Again, no changes there. I think 1 reading had end of chapter questions added. Then you have 2 readings on derivatives and 1 on currency management. They're pretty much a repeat of 2021. Fixed income is the big one, all new, top to bottom. Now the first 2 readings do have, I'd say, a 60 to 70% overlap with what 2021 had. It's presented in a different way. It's more streamlined. It's more condensed, which is a good thing because it's shorter, but is also a bad thing because a lot of the explanation has just been eliminated. So there are some sections that, especially when you get to yield curve strategies and credit strategies, there are some sections that if you don't know what the author is talking about, you're not going to know what the author is talking about. So that it's not so much a teaching book, but as a reminding book to remind you of something that you probably should already know, or at least that's the author's assumption. But this is all new. Yield curve strategies shorter than last year's, and credit strategies longer. And the difficulty has been switched. Yield curve strategies used to be the more difficult of the 4 fixed income readings. Now this one is, I'd say, middle of the road, and credit strategies has been upgraded in terms of difficulty, and it's a long one too. So if you're looking for the big change there, it's fixed income, and these 2, almost no overlap with 2021 in terms of the content. I'd say maybe 10% overlap. Topics in private wealth management. This replaces 3 readings. There was a reading on taxes in a global context, on estate planning, and on concentrated single asset positions. Well, this is a really long reading that has 3 sections, 1 on taxes, 1 on estate planning, and 1 on concentrated single asset positions. But it's been pared down a bit so that it doesn't have all of the detail that the other 3 readings had, but that's a new one. There are 3 case studies. The 2 that were there for 2021 are still there, but a new institutional one has been added. Now, a word about the case studies. They're really narrative, meaning you got to read them. So there'll be like a small section of narration, maybe a page and a half, and then there'll be a question being asked of, well, what do you think of all this? And then it'll continue on with what the answer to that question was. The unfortunate thing is new information is put in the answer that you simply didn't have here, so there's no way that you could get what this is saying if you stopped on your own and said, well, let me think this through, let me make some notes, and what would I do? You would not have been able to get the answer. It's just constructed poorly. I have not found a good way to present the case without doing a lot of on-screen reading. And I know I don't like listening to somebody else read something. I'd rather hit pause and read it myself. I'm sure other people are the same way. So I am going to do these. I will add them. I never added the case studies before because they are narrative. I'm going to add them this year because there's 3 of them. That's about 10% of them, well, almost 10% of the readings when you look at 38 readings, right? But I need to find a way to do it that adds value. It can't simply be me just reading the words to you. You can read the words yourself. I have to find a way to make it, to give it more structure than what it currently has. And I've tried a few different approaches and I don't like any of them, but I'm going to keep at it. The Global Investment Performance Standards has changed. It used to be about a 100-page reading. Now it's about 35 pages, much shorter. A lot of the technical detail has been eliminated. So it is the highlights, which I think makes a lot more sense if we're trying to be generalists here. We don't really have to know all the detail of the standards. We just have to be aware of the standards and aware of the big themes of the standards and what it means. Well, that's what it does. Professionalism in the investment industry dropped. That was a reading that was in ethics. And application of ethics, they're like little case studies, 4 or 5 page case studies with questions interspersed that you can answer as you get to them. It's not as if, well, unless I read the answer, there's no possible way I could get the answer because there's information in the answer that I need. That's the problem with these case studies. So I will be adding them, but you don't really need ethics until we get closer to the exam, so I will add them over time. I want to do level 1, 2, and 3 at the same time when I do ethics because there's applications put at all three levels. And I think that it is worth putting some of the applications from previous levels all at level 3 as well, just to see more of it because they're all applicable. So I'm thinking of doing that. Across all the readings, there are random end of chapter questions added here and there. I'm doing my best to update all of them, but it's not a matter of what I want to do. It's a matter of what I have permission to do, right? And minor changes to some readings. Where there were minor changes, it is primarily ESG topics. But I find that, wherever ESG is added, they tend to say the same thing again and again and again, so that if you've seen ESG once, where it was added in different contexts, where a section ends, there'll be another little paragraph saying, oh yes, and you know what, you can stick ESG in here too, and then it tells you what ESG is. It's like, yes, we get it, we understand, we know what this is. That I find that it's not really worth repeating what ESG is every single time it's stuck into a reading. Every reading is written by a different author, so every author thinks that when they're putting it in, they're the only ones putting it in and feel the need to explain what every other author is explaining at the same time. So those are the content changes, which will require some mock exam changes as well, especially for fixed income. So those are going to be updated, and wherever questions are out of date, they'll be updated as well. The layout has also changed. Typically, book 1 at each level has always been ethics. Well, that's book 6 now. Book 1, reading 1 starts right at behavioral finance, right at the content. And some sections are split over 2 books. So we, at level 3, had always broken down our sections by book 1, book 2, all the way to book 6, and they were self-contained. Well, now fixed income is 2 readings in book 2 and 2 readings in book 3. Well, I find that unsatisfying. What if you only want fixed income? Now you got to buy 2 sections just to get fixed income. So I'll show you on our website what we've done to structure the different sections. We've maintained what it used to look like in 2021 in terms of the structure of each section, of the content of each section, but the content itself, every reading is updated to 2022. So let's have a look at that. All right, so here it is. It's 69.25 Canadian per section, which at the exchange rate of 25%, I think is somewhere around mid to low 50s US. Section 1 here, behavioral finance and capital market expectations. That was book 2 last year, so we kept the same section. Section 2, asset allocation, derivatives, and currency management, lines up with book 3 of last year. And here is fixed income and equity portfolio management. So it's not split over 2 sections, it's all in one section. This was book 4, this was book 5, this was book 6, and book 6 used to be book 1. We're doing this for 2 reasons. The big reason is, look, if you want fixed income, I can't really justify saying, hey, there's 2 readings here, so you got to buy section 2, and there's 2 readings here, so you got to buy section 3, thereby paying double. I wouldn't like it if that was done to me. And that's sort of how I think about pricing things is, what would I hate? And let's just not do any of that stuff. So by having it all in one section, you just pick the section you want. It's a self-contained topic. It's not split over 2 or 3 sections. The other reason we did this is all of our content is one fee to pass, which means if you buy, last year, let's say you bought book 4 and only book 4. Well, book 4 has equity and fixed income. And you don't pass, which means you need to repeat. Well, we give you book 4 for free. You already paid for it once. We give it to you free for anyone who had a subscription that was, a 2021 subscription and onwards, because we only started it in 2021. Well, it would be hard to do that if we split up fixed income between Section 2 and Section 3, because we have to write code to give you partial permission at that point in time. So if we started following the new order, we'd have so many different combinations that we would have to code for that it was simple to say, why don't we just keep the sections we used to have? So if you had book 4 of last year and you need to take it again, that's the same as section 3 of this year. Done, right? So we are not splitting topics over different books, and we are aligning the topics within a section to replicate what the previous year's section had, although it's just off on the numbering. That's all, because Gips is down at number 6. And that's it.